The sun rose, painting the forest of yet a grove in hues of gold and green. Birds sang softly, their melodies blending with the whispers of the breeze. Among them was Ajahn, his posture heavy with the weight of regret. Buddha's eyes rested upon Ajahn, sensing his inner turmoil before any words were spoken. Ajahn, unable to contain his emotions, voiced his pain with trembling words. Blessed One, I carry regret for the harm I have caused, and it consumes me. To feel lost is the nature of the restless mind, wandering like a deer in search of a safer place. The Buddha continued. The mind leaps, like a monkey, from branch to branch, finding neither rest nor clarity. His voice was calm, each word resonating like a ripple across water. Ajahn, we often hold the illusion that our mistakes define us entirely. This is the root of unnecessary suffering. A gentle breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers, adding softness to the solemn moment shared. Look at this earth, Buddha said, gesturing to the ground beneath him. It bears footprints, yet does not cling to their marks forever. Ajahn's gaze followed Buddha's gesture, his mind searching for meaning in the simplicity of the statement. Buddha lifted a pebble and held it toward Ajahn. Consider this pebble. When thrown into water, it sinks but leaves ripples behind. His hand released the pebble into a shallow pool nearby, its descent clear and measured. The ripples fade, Buddha continued, but the water remains. It carries the pebble yet transforms its presence. Ajahn observed the ripples dissipating, their movement calm and final, as though offering solace. Our mistakes, like pebbles, do not define the water they enter. They shape ripples but cannot erase the water's essence. Buddha's words settled deeply, prompting quiet reflection among the disciples seated nearby. Ajahn's heart stirred, though the weight of his regret resisted easy release. Buddha extended his open hand toward the group. I invite you all to consider the nature of forgiveness, especially toward oneself. His invitation elicited murmurs of contemplation as disciples sought examples within their own lives. A small bird alighted on Buddha's shoulder, its movements gentle and unhurried. The sight drew smiles from the disciples, lightening the atmosphere slightly. Even this bird knows the freedom of letting go when it takes flight, Buddha remarked. It leaves behind the branch, not begrudging its hold. Ajahn's breath steadied as the metaphor took root in his thoughts, urging him toward clarity. But blessed One, Ajahn hesitated. What if my mistakes have caused harm that lingers for others? The question weighed heavy in the moment, drawing attention to the reality of consequence. Buddha nodded, acknowledging the truth of Ajahn's concern with his unwavering empathy. Ajahn, the weight you feel stems not only from actions but from clinging to their permanence. His words framed the issue without judgment, guiding reflection instead. If your intent seeks to mend and to grow, the burden lessens, though the steps are steady and deliberate. Buddha reached into a small bag and withdrew seeds, scattering them over the earth in front of him. These seeds grow not instantly but with patience. Mistakes are moments, but forgiveness unfolds like the soil giving nourishment to growth. The disciples watched the seeds settle, imagining the patient transformation from vulnerability to vitality. Ajahn nodded slowly, the metaphor enriching his understanding of time's power to heal. Buddha's voice softened but remained resolute in wisdom. To forgive oneself is to nourish the soil, allowing new roots to sprout from what feels barren. His statement radiated assurance, a steady light amid Ajahn's storm. Begin small, Ajahn. Release the judgments that chain you, step by step, until freedom takes flight like the bird. The disciples reflected, their thoughts mingling with Ajahn's in the shared pursuit of inner peace. Buddha leaned forward slightly, addressing Ajahn directly, his words carrying both comfort and strength. Carry this lesson, embrace imperfection as the soil for renewal, not as shackles of shame. Ajahn heart steadied further, a flicker of light growing within the shadow of regret. The Bodhi tree stood firm, its leaves whispering the wisdom unfolding beneath its canopy. Buddha returned his focus to all present, grounding the lesson universally. Forgiveness is an act of compassion toward oneself and the world shaped by our presence. His voice blended into the rustling leaves, as though nature itself affirmed his teachings. Ajahn eyes lifted to meet Buddha's, his spirit less burdened than when the day began. Though his journey remained ongoing, the path before him now carried promise of renewal. The disciples departed slowly, their steps mirroring the wisdom they carried in their hearts. Buddha remained beneath the Bodhi tree, his presence a testament to the power of timeless compassion. Another day, another lesson awaited those seeking Buddha's wisdom beneath the ancient Bodhi tree. The sun painted golden streaks across the sky, heralding a calm morning. Disciples arrived silently, each bearing questions that stirred their hearts. Among them, Ajahn walked slower, his steps marked with thoughtful hesitation. A villager hurried toward them, tears falling as his voice broke the tranquility. Blessed One, please, my despair is unbearable. My jar, my only possession, lies shattered at the well's edge. Buddha turned his gentle gaze toward the distraught man, inviting him forward with an open hand. His calm demeanor stilled the man's sobs. If only briefly. Tell me, friend, Buddha said, his voice serene, does the broken jar hold power over your suffering? Or do you give it power? The man stammered, confused yet willing to listen, his hands trembling from emotion. It is both, Blessed One. Without the jar, I lose everything. Its loss defines my misfortune. Buddha nodded thoughtfully, signaling the disciples to gather closer as he addressed both the man and his followers. Consider this: the jar is shattered, and its state cannot be reversed by lamentation alone. What remains now is choice. His statement invited reflection, each word carrying a weight that was neither condemning nor dismissive. He gestured toward the broken shards near the well, their sharp edges glinting under the sunlight. Approach the fragments and collect them, Buddha instructed, his tone neither commanding nor urgent but steady. The man hesitated but obeyed, gathering the pieces carefully, though his tears did not cease. When he returned, Buddha extended a bowl of water, clear and still. Place the shards within this water, and observe the surface as you do, Buddha advised, his eyes meeting the man's. Each shard entered the water, the liquid rippling briefly before regaining its serenity. Now, Buddha began, the jar's fragments rest within the water. Does the water cry out in grief? Or does it remain still? The man blinked, his confusion mingling with clarity as he replied, it remains still, Blessed One. It accepts the fragments without judgment. Buddha's serene smile offered both assurance and insight as he spoke again. The water teaches us to release attachment and accept transformation. Its stillness mirrors forgiveness, which reshapes our inner suffering. Ajahn watched with rapt attention, his heart resonating with the profound simplicity of the lesson unfolding. Buddha turned to Ajahn, his voice soft yet deliberate. Ajahn, observe the man's hands. They are no longer burdened by the sharpness of the shards. Ajahn nodded slowly, understanding that release did not erase loss but shifted its hold over the spirit. But Blessed One, the man interjected, the jar is gone, and I cannot undo its breaking. How can this lessen my despair? Buddha's gaze softened further as he replied, the jar's absence is truth, but clinging to despair chains you to that moment. Release brings freedom. The man's breathing steadied, his trembling reduced as Buddha's words replaced his despair with contemplation. The disciples observed silently, their thoughts expanding to encompass their own burdens and unspoken attachments. Buddha extended a hand, inviting the man to sit, grounding him within the shared experience of the moment. When you grieve the jar, You grieve an image that no longer exists, Buddha explained. Yet life continues, ready to reshape itself. His voice carried the cadence of a stream, soothing and persistent, carving paths within the listeners' hearts. A bird landed nearby, its song a light counterpoint to the gravity of the discussion. Even this bird rebuilds its nest when storms dismantle it, never begrudging the branches for their impermanence, Buddha remarked. The man's eyes glistened, though tears no longer fell in streams, his sorrow tempered by Buddha's wisdom. So too, Buddha continued, must you rebuild, using the lessons found within the fragments of loss and regret. The disciples nodded, their understanding deepened by the interplay of metaphor and tangible reality. Ajahn felt his heart lift slightly, his grip on his own past mistakes loosening one thread at a time. The man, now calmer, bowed deeply before Buddha, his gratitude evident despite lingering sorrow. Thank you, Blessed One. I will strive to release my attachment and rebuild from the pieces. Buddha bowed his head gently, his affirmation silent yet profound. He turned to his disciples, who awaited further teaching with eager yet quiet anticipation. Remember, Buddha said, addressing all, life's storms may shatter what we hold, but they also clear paths for renewal. The Bodhi tree rustled, as if agreeing with the wisdom spoken beneath its sheltering branches. Ajahn approached Buddha after the man departed, his expression one of both hesitation and resolve. Blessed One, your words move me, yet I struggle with forgiving myself fully. My past lingers heavily still. Buddha's gaze met Ajahn's, unwavering yet compassionate, as he replied, Ajahn, the soil accepts both the seed and the decay. His words drew Ajahn's focus, urging him toward reflection on the duality of growth and transformation. Your past, like the soil, holds potential not for judgment but for nourishment of your future actions, Buddha explained. Ajahn exhaled deeply, the weight of his inner conflict eased though not entirely dissolved. Buddha placed a hand gently upon Ajahn's shoulder, his touch light yet grounding. Forgive not to erase, but to transform, Buddha said. For renewal thrives within release, not resistance. The day continued, its lessons lingering in the minds of those present, shaping their thoughts and paths forward. Buddha remained beneath the Bodhi tree, his presence enduring as a beacon of timeless compassion. Another day, another sunrise bathed the monastery gardens in soft light, awakening the world to its daily renewal. Buddha sat beneath the Bodhi tree, his aura serene, his presence unwavering as disciples gathered with quiet anticipation. Ajahn approached with steadier steps, though traces of his inner conflict remained etched on his face. Buddha's gaze settled upon him, sensing both progress and hesitation within Ajahn's soul. In his hands, Buddha held a lotus flower, its petals pristine despite its origins in muddy waters. Disciples murmured softly, their curiosity drawn to the symbolic gesture carried by the Blessed One. Behold this lotus, Buddha began, his voice calm yet resonant, inviting focus from each listener present. Its beauty is undeniable, yet its roots thrive within mud, which nurtures its growth into a flower. Ajahn stared at the lotus, his thoughts drawn to its paradoxical elegance and its connection to imperfection. Buddha extended the lotus toward Ajahn, its delicate form resting lightly in his open palm. Ajahn, tell me, does the mud diminish the lotus? Or does it serve as the foundation for its bloom? Ajahn hesitated before replying, his voice thoughtful. Blessed One, the mud does not diminish the lotus. It is necessary for its existence. Buddha nodded, his affirmation gentle yet significant. Indeed, Ajahn, without the mud, the lotus cannot emerge. Imperfection paves the way for transformation. The disciples exchanged knowing glances, recognizing the deeper truth within Buddha's words and their connection to life's challenges. Buddha placed the lotus in a shallow bowl of water, its reflection shimmering gently on the surface. Observe how the water cradles the lotus, its ripples soft and accepting. So must we embrace our flaws without judgment. Ajahn's eyes lingered on the lotus, his understanding deepening as its reflection merged with Buddha's teachings. But blessed one, Ajahn said, how can I honor the mud when it has brought harm through my past mistakes? The question carried weight, prompting quiet contemplation among the disciples, each grappling with their own burdens. Buddha's gaze softened further, his wisdom unshaken by Ajahn's challenge. Ajahn, honor does not mean celebrating harm but transforming pain into a source of compassion and growth. His words settled like rain upon thirsty soil, refreshing the minds of those gathered beneath the Bodhi tree. Our mistakes serve as mud when we choose to learn from them, nurturing the roots of wisdom and humanity. The disciples nodded, their thoughts attuned to the parallels between the lotus and their personal struggles. Buddha lifted the lotus once more, its petals reflecting the morning sun with quiet brilliance. Ajahn, observe the balance between the mud, roots, and flower. Each part contributes to the whole, uniting imperfection and beauty. Ajahn exhaled deeply, his spirit lighter as his journey toward self-forgiveness gained clarity and purpose. A sparrow flew overhead, its movements light, its song carried by the morning breeze, adding softness to the moment. Even this sparrow, Buddha remarked, trusts the wind to guide its flight, releasing fear of falling and embracing the unknown. The disciples smiled, their hearts lightened by the simple yet profound imagery Buddha shared with them. Ajahn bowed deeply, his gratitude evident in the quiet respect he extended toward the Blessed One. Buddha returned his gaze to the group, grounding the lesson universally for all present. The spirit of forgiveness is like the lotus, blooming not despite imperfection but because of it. His voice blended with the rustling leaves, carrying the wisdom farther than mere words could reach. To forgive oneself is to embrace the mud and flower alike, recognizing both as vital parts of the journey. The Bodhi tree stood firm, its leaves whispering affirmations of the teachings unfolding beneath its ancient canopy. Ajahn's posture straightened, his heart steadied further, his path illuminated by the truths Buddha revealed. The disciples departed gradually, each carrying the lesson in their minds and hearts, ready to weave it into their lives. Buddha remained beneath the Bodhi tree, his presence unwavering as the day continued, its promise renewed. Thank you for watching. Buddha's teachings are always with you. Subscribe to our channel and we will see you in the next video.